It is the end of 2020. Golly, what a year. It was tough and hard. And I'll tell you guys, I have never seen a year as crazy as this one. I was sitting in bed last night just thinking about the things that have happened this year, and I realized that it's the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, and I completely forgot about New Year's resolutions and all those things, probably because it seemed like this year it was almost impossible to keep New Year's resolutions. I can only remember like one that I made for 2020, which was to make a certain amount of videos for the last year to improve and get better. But I think that this point in time is going to be a big milestone, a big growth moment for us to make the decision to get up and not be comfortable. So in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to make good New Year's resolutions and how to keep them. New Year's resolutions, there's a couple parts that I've seen and it goes along with them, which there's two main things, is identifying what needs to change, and secondly, implementing different things that needs to happen in order to create that change realistically. So let's talk about identifying for a second, and then we'll go to implementing. In identifying, you have to identify a problem that you feel like is holding you back in your life, either mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally. And I think a big part of that for me is being with Jesus and being with him, because really we can do nothing without him. In fact, there's a verse that talks about how we can make all the plans, but really he is going to be the one who guides our steps. So that's super important for me as a Christian. But for you, it may be completely different. I think that what's really important though is that you identify an issue. Typically this isn't too hard. Typically we know what we need to change. But also with identifying, there's a second part to identifying, and it's identifying how you're going to make this goal possible. Really, we need to make a goal that's measurable. I think the important factor with making measurable goals is making sure that your measurements are attainable. And that leads us to our second point. Making sure that your goals are super attainable is important, because if you don't have attainable goals, like let's say I want to make 400 videos this year, that's just not attainable. Very easy to think it's going to be all well and easy in the moment when you make these things. It's another thing when you actually start doing it. In fact, you probably should think it's going to be 3 times harder than you think it's going to be, because I think that often we say, oh, it's going to be easy not to eat any more candy or drink any soda or go to the gym every day. But when we're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning 3 or 4 times one week and we're tired, it's going to start putting a wear on us. So I think that attainability and measurability is also important. And lastly, I think awareness is important. We need to be aware if we're doing something or not, because we can then, in turn, really see the change and the impact that it has in our lives. Okay, so the last part is implementing the change. So what do you do to implement change? Just like we talked about focus, I think prayer plays a big part. When we pray, it keeps our focus on our goal. And we also are giving this to Jesus. I think that's super important for growth. And the second thing I think is accountability. I think a big reason why people are not able to make change in their life is because they have no accountability. They try to do it by themselves. It's just not possible. You have to have people to hold you accountable around you, and you have to pray to God not only to keep your focus on it yourself, but for him to be there for you and help you grow. So after all this change and stuff, a lot of times it can really be hard to keep pushing and keep going forward and to move forward with our goal, because we make mistakes in all these different things like we just talked about. And ultimately it comes down to this, is we just have to find our grit and the things that we need to do to push forward. Here's what I remember when I was younger. I used to run a lot, and I had this one coach who would just scream at the top of her lungs when she saw people struggling to run. And the word she used to say was embrace the suck. It's almost kind of like a growth mindset type of thing, because she knows that once we are happy with the suck and we're not moping in the things that hurt, it's like we automatically are driven to be happy with it and be like driven and happy that we're growing. It's almost like the negativity and positivity outlook. It's like if we focus on this hurts, this stinks, this is terrible, then we don't realize that there's actual big changes that's happening in our body and our mind that could really have a big impact on us later. Another great analogy is climbing up a big mountain. I don't know how many of you have been hiking. I love hiking. I love going out and outdoors. That's where we're at right now. But I love it. And the thing that is so cool is some of the best views are in the hardest places to get to. And so you'll go up this mountain, go, and then at the top, you see this. This is why it's worth it, because the growth and the end is so much better than what we have now. In this moment, it's easy to become comfortable, but embrace the suck.